Okay, hey everyone, I'm Sarah. My presentation will be a series of photographs of a lot of people because really that's kind of who we are and what we're about. A lot of similarities with us and you guys actually. There's a lot of things that I was like, yeah, that's where we're at, and that's sort of the journey that we're on as well. So I'm from a group called Youth Food Movement. Who are we? We're a group of people who are looking to facilitate really positive, constructive, open discussion and conversation about the current state of our food system. Youth Food Movement was started in Sydney about 3 years ago by a couple of girls, one of whom was in the very first photograph that popped up there. And I became aware of Youth Food Movement when I was living in Sydney, and really to me they stood out as a group amongst a whole lot of groups in Sydney who were really doing something, as I said, constructive, relevant within this I guess movement is the word that keeps popping up. Youth Food Movement really stood out to me in Sydney as having something important to say and saying it very clearly. There's a lot of energy and a lot of dialogue that can be thrown around that kind of, not that it gets lost, there's a lot of it. It can be quite a whirlwind, and I found that the message with Youth Food Movement was quite clear. So about a year ago, a little bag of crazy called Rebecca Dorr brought that to Brisbane. So she started it here. Kicked off, rather than going in with too much, words and intentions. Beck just hit the ground running and started off with an event called Crop Fest. Then in August, we did our second event called Real Food Nights. So really a little bit of the background to where we've been, what we've done and who we are starts with, I guess, a year of putting on two pretty big events, which is a different way to do things. And now we're kind of, in the last month or so, kind of almost starting from a fresh starting point of strategy and working out who we are and what we're doing and how we're doing it and things like that. So who are we really? Like, who are we actually in Youth Food Movement? We are a bunch of people. We are a bunch of young people. We're all pretty much all foodies. We're really into eating. We're into cooking. We're city dwellers. We're all from different areas, but generally pretty central to Brisbane CBD. Some of us have first, second, maybe third-hand connection to country and farm, but none of us are really from the farm as such. We have a couple of people who grew up on and around farms. So we're a very urban voice on issues that have a real, a very rural feel, a very different feel to what I guess we grew up with. Having said that, we're very, very passionate about it, and most of us will do anything that we can to spend time on farms, around farms. We really enjoy that. We're a bunch of idealists, and there's no getting around that. There's no way for me to come and stand here and talk to you with the level of experience and integrity and wealth of knowledge that some of these guys before me, which is really intimidating, by the way, have. We are a bunch of idealists. So what do we have to offer to everything that we're talking about today? We have energy, and we have enthusiasm, and we have ideas, and we have that in abundance, and sometimes that's overwhelming. Our meetings can get out of hand in terms of the amount of things that we want to do, that we want to achieve. How are we going to do it? We get way off track, and then we have to pull it all back again and try and rein it in and stay focused and things like that. But that is something that in the right hands can be really, really useful, can be really positive. So that's really what we've got, I think, to offer. We're also a bunch of people who recognise that our government is never going to come to the rescue on any of this. We need to, as was mentioned really articulately by Greg there, we need to stop expecting that they're going to come in and do something about this. It's wasted time and energy, and we need to focus on what we can do. So, all tarted up, we're a group of people who like to talk about food, who like to talk about farming, who like to talk about agriculture, and that's who we are, and we're proud of it. In our first year, having achieved 2 events and then sort of taking a step back and going, all right, but seriously, who are we and how are we doing this, and what's our strategy and what's our plan? It is very interesting to do it that way, and we are very much right at this moment in a period of putting that all together. So no plans for future events right this second, but really excited about sort of next year and what's going to happen with us then. And we're looking at focusing on things like food waste, like seasonality, and grow your own, because I think for us it's really important. What we want to try and achieve is figuring out a balance, or collectively figuring out a balance between the benefits of growing your own in your backyard gardens and also supporting industry and farmers and things, and not going too far one way or too far the other way. Seasonality, really important for us, because it's something that I think is really tangible. It's relatable. Me personally, I come from a hospitality background. I have been in hospitality since I was very young. So I work for a cafe now who is all about seasonal produce and local. We like supporting local produce and farmers, and we have direct links to farmers. So for me, when I talk about food business, I have a fair bit of knowledge in that area. I kind of know a lot about it. I know what it's like to work for food businesses who don't give a shit, who slap labels like organic and sustainable on produce, on menus, on events, and they're not at all, and it's appalling. So I personally think it's really important to not just focus on the consumer all the time, and not just focus on the farmer, not just focus on the distributor. It's also really important to look at some of the in-betweens, like food businesses, like hospitality, and how these guys, they spoke earlier about, and I know Sally and Rob have left, but we spoke earlier about Alistair McLeod. I worked alongside Alistair McLeod for 6 years. I was his right-hand girl. When I started at Brett's Wharf, it certainly was never about seasonal. It was never about anything sustainable. It was a big seafood restaurant that was about putting the numbers through, and by the end of it, it was Alistair's absolute passion to make sure that he knew where produce was coming from, and that maybe it wasn't that cool to be getting truffle oil in from Italy for a dish that you might sell 17 of in a week. So for me, that is really important to perhaps consider, that we need to engage some of these people, because it's all well and good to talk to a room of converted folk who believe what I believe, and we all agree and support each other, and that's fantastic. But how do we talk to people who think that we're all a bunch of tree-hugging hippies? How do we get them to buy into what we're saying? So we need to look at the people that they're listening to, or perhaps other channels to communicate. And the sad thing is that as soon as something's fashionable, as soon as it's hip, as soon as there's celebrity involved, people are going to pay attention. Generally speaking, the people that are not already paying attention are going to pay attention. So maybe, looking at chefs and restaurants and things is another avenue that we can go down. Not saying that that's exactly, where youth food movement's going to focus on, but I think it's really interesting to look at that as a case study for how to get our message out to people who aren't already converted. And that's something we are passionate about. Because as much as we at Youth Food Movement do love to sit around a table and chat and drink wine and eat a lot of food, it's important that we don't just keep this as an internal discussion. We have to find different ways to get it out there. So ultimately what we want is a healthy food system for everybody. We want transparency, we want fairness, we want that balance in our life. To us, food is important, community is important, and we're going to try and factor all of that into what we do and how we do it. So how do we do it? Through projects, through initiatives, and through events. Really, with us, it's about looking at one-off events that we can hold, the ones that we've already done, which you've got some shots popping up there. We've done a little retreat, so some of these shots like here are from a retreat that we went on as a group, which was an internal team building thing, but it was also just an incredible experience to go and talk to farmers. And we went and visited Sarah and Matt Muller at Fassifern Valley, and we walked amongst tomato vines, and it's a different experience once you go and actually talk to the farmers about what they're doing and how they're doing it and things like that. So taking that and saying, all right, well, that's our internal group, what can we do that's along the same lines that's bringing other people into that experience as well. Big one-off events, always fun, always good. We see ourselves as really just the dinner party hosts in that scenario. We want to put something on to get everybody involved. And we're not going to be the ones standing up there talking at you. We're going to be the ones that are just facilitating, they're opening that room, being the host. So we had real food nights recently. We had a great panel there who were, I guess, in response to both questions from the audience and also the subject matter of 4 pretty controversial short films. It was a very interesting night. Rob was there. Above all, in terms of how we're doing it, we don't want to talk at or for farmers, distributors, suppliers, or the people. We just want to say, hey, let's talk about this and open it up. Open up really appropriate forums for discussion, essentially, is what we're trying to do. Future projects, again, we're working on lots of ideas, lots of things that we'd love to do, and words like collaboration and community keep popping up, which is really good. We collaborate with a lot of very exciting businesses already, and I think I can smell and taste other collaborations in the room today. But yeah, workshops and community gardens and things like that. I mean, it's done before, but isn't that the point? It works. So we want to contribute to that as well. We want to look at things that we can do there. I mean, I'd love to send one of us off for an internship, a farm internship, and actually get one of the youth food movement people out there and doing it as well. At the end of the day, we don't want a bunch of people going at farmers and asking questions and doing things. We want to work out a way that we can talk that farmers are comfortable with and that we're learning from as well. Heaps of challenges, of course. Time, resources. One of the things with us is we've got no base, we've got no front door, we've got no way of kind of receiving feedback and facilitating our own internal decent conversation because we have no front line. So all of those challenges are very prevalent, and add to that the fact that we find it really hard to get blokes involved. We have a lot of ladies and not a lot of guys, which is really interesting that it's hard to attract that. So these are some of the smaller issues that we're looking at as well. Me personally, in my short time with Youth Food Movement, I haven't actually been with the group all that long, although I've been aware of them for a very long time. For me, the most amazing things that have come from it, the most valuable experiences so far have been talking to the farmers. And just like that, in a 5-minute conversation, perspective changed, opinion changed. It's very, very easy to believe what you read in the media and what gets circulated, and it's not necessarily how it is at all. And as you say, because farmers are not all extroverts and are quite happy as long as, they've got their world, it's quite full, it's quite busy. The picture that we're getting presented with is quite often not at all the case. So that's been fascinating to me, and keeping an open mind about that, about what the real truth is out there on the farms. how does anyone get involved with the youth food movement if they want to? Jump on the website, really. There's expression of interest there at the moment. We will in next year be looking at recruitment drives and things once we've got more of the structure set out and we know what our projects are going to be for 2015. We'll be doing recruitment drives and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're a volunteer group. There's only, I think, there's about 12, 14 core members at the moment, so we're not huge. But we're definitely looking at the scale of how Sydney has progressed, and it's quite big now. And now we've got Greater Western Sydney and Melbourne. YFM has also just started up, so we know generally how it's going to go, and we hope to be able to achieve that. Anyway, thank you very much for listening and for having me.